All right, working on the top part of the transmission tunnel, and I have the lower part that I built clecoed in place now, and I added some nut certs to the recess where the shifter's going to come through, and I trimmed the hole out, and I used my hammer fab tool to do some recesses so that the nut certs fit nice and flush. And so I've been working on this top part, and the first thing I did was work at trimming away the top here so that this could fit up nice and flush for welding. And you can see it's fitting pretty good. Little air gap here, but that's just because there's some tiny little magnets holding it on. And so I just had some random scrap laying around that I bent up and used to fit everything. This will basically be my template for the actual piece that I made. This is a lot thinner material, so it's easier just to kind of tweak around and whatever. But I took and used a marker and just roughly marked out where the trim line is going to be. That will all be done on the other one while it's on the car. I'll be tacking it in place and then trimming it as I go, kind of, because I'm just going to weld from the inside here down the whole seams, and then I'll trim the outside, and then I'll weld the outside as well and grind that flush so there won't be any flanges that you can see on the outside, so it should be a nice clean installation. And then yesterday I welded in this patch panel here, and that is because I no longer need the two holes for the clutch and brake pedal and then the original steering column mount. So I shaved all that up, still got these two little holes to take care of here, and then this will be getting a new hole cut into it for a firewall flange bearing that the steering shaft will go through. But this is where we're at now. So I'm going to take this back off, and then I'll grab my sheet metal and I will take some measurements off of this, and then there'll be a little bit of finish work here and there, like the box sections, and then there's some cross members that you can see underneath the car here, and that's cross members are what the bench seat bolts to, so it strengthens that area for the bench seat and obviously the whole body. And so those will be chopped out. This one already is, and so I'm gonna have to build those back into the drive shaft tunnel so that there is a good amount of strength still in here. I don't want to just cap these and leave these like that. You can see it flexes a little bit, so once we get the tunnel built, I'll build a box section like this up and around and weld it all back together. Do the same for this, and then you can see this section right here has a boxed section here that gets pretty thin, but it's still boxed a little bit, and that's going to have to get trimmed out for the drive shaft too. And so what I'll do here is I'll make a brace like the other parts that goes up and over and back down, and be able to spot weld the front of this panel to it, weld it to this boxed section of the frame here. We'll take some little sheet metal and close these guys up, and then that will finally be a wrap. All right, so I have my two pieces of the transmission tunnel ready to be welded in, except for one last step. I need to put some weld through primer on this flange here and on the underside of the body as well. This side doesn't need any of the weld through primer because everything is just going to be welded like a butt weld or like a T-weld. So there's going to be no overlapping there. And this is trimmed up good enough for what we need. There's a bunch of excess here and here, but as we put it in and start stitch welding it along, we'll basically tack it in every inch, and then those heat marks will show us where on the back side we can trim off the excess. And then, like I said, once we fully weld from the inside, we'll shave it all down on the outside and then roast in some MIG weld on the outside so that we can shave that down and have a nice smooth transition from firewall to transmission tunnel. Since you last saw this, I went and used my step dies here, these kind of fine detail step dies, to put this flange in, because this is going underneath the floor. And so this step is basically the thickness of the floor, so that this part will be flush with the floor, and we'll be able to plug weld all of these and then tack weld along the seam like we've been doing with the rest of everything. And then I went in and I put these two reliefs in with the bead roller because it runs into these elements of the floor. So those are just little reliefs for that. And so everything is good to go and ready to weld. I'll put some weldable primer, some of the Steel-It on here at the end of the day, because that stuff is not great to smell when you're in the shop. If I was going to spray this and then work in here for the next 2 or 3 hours, wouldn't feel pretty good at the end of that, I would imagine. So that's the last thing we're going to do today, is spray this flange and then the underside of the body. We'll let that sit overnight. And tomorrow morning I have a 30-kilometer fat bike race that I'm doing, and then I'll get back out in the shop after that, and I will get both of these parts welded in so that come Monday, Saturday today, so that come Monday I can start working on the drive shaft tunnel. So all this will be welded in, and then we'll just have to connect the two together with the drive shaft tunnel. And the hardest part is going to be replacing these box sections and getting those to come up and over and in and clear everything so that we are maintaining the structural integrity of the body as best we can. So we have 3 of those.
Touch them to stay a little bit of that. Yeah, that's better. So we have Band-Aid brown and the fade blue. Strokes to really soften it. There we go. And we can wash your brush again. Actually, I want to get the cameraman. He's been giving me a hard time. Just that color.
the turds are all local. We just go out and track the moose, and wherever the moose are, they're going to take a crap.